What's going on, everyone? So the Los Angeles Lakers could use another center, right? Jackson Hayes, I think, is fine, but I kind of look at him more as that third big, right? Guy that's getting 10, 15 minutes on a regular basis, maybe even a nightly basis, that's coming in just giving you effort and energy. The problem with Jackson Hayes, it's what I said even when he was playing great for the Lakers, the longer he gets into these games, the more that the flaws start to show, right? And during the regular season, it's not terrible. Like, you can get through with it, but playoffs is where the issues really start to arise, right? That's when, every little detail, every little nuance gets exploited, and, you have to play as close to perfect basketball as possible, right? I like Jackson Hayes, still young, plenty of development still to be done with him. Fine if the Lakers want to keep him even beyond this season, right? But I just think that the Lakers should get somebody that's a little more stable at that position, somebody that's a little more trustworthy, and ideally somebody that's still young enough to have that said upside and potential. And one player that I'd like to see is Jalen Smith of the Chicago Bulls. Now, the Chicago Bulls are reportedly looking to trade for a Nick Richards, right? Phoenix Suns, they need to unload some centers. So if Chicago goes and ponies up to land Nick Richards, what does that mean for Jalen Smith? Also, I've talked about how the Chicago Bulls are already kind of considering waiving or buying out Nikola Vucevic, because Nikola Vucevic wants to go to a contender. So do they go with Jalen Smith and a Nick Richards, right? Or do they still have other guys on the roster, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes up. But Jalen Smith is a guy that's kind of been in rumors that Chicago may be willing to get off of, along with Ayo Dosunmu, right? Kobe White, Lonzo Ball was another one, and they ended up trading Lonzo Ball. Ideally, in a perfect world, I'd love if the Lakers could go get Ayo Dosunmu as well as Jalen Smith and kind of kill two birds with one stone. Go get a young 25-year-old center that has upside and potential, right, but can already kind of solidify that backcourt depth, and then also give you that kind of two-way 3-and-D style combo guard that could play at either forward or either guard spot. A little bit at the three, but really kind of either guard spot, but also kind of make plays, right? Self-create, create for himself, create for others, be that point of attack defender, right? And is still young enough for potential upside. But talked a lot about Ayo over the last years have changed, because I've wanted Ayo since, last trade deadline, right? So I want to kind of focus more on Jalen Smith, who I do think makes a lot of sense for the Lakers and can really kind of bring some potential to the Lakers, right? He's also only due $9 million, and he's under contract this year and next year, which lines up perfectly with the Lakers trying to kind of preserve that cap space for 2027. Whether that actually becomes a thing or not, there was recent reports from Jovan Buha. I'll dive into more in a separate video, but that, hey, the Lakers, the grand plan that people are trying to make it out to be in 2027 isn't necessarily that. But like I said, I'll go into more detail in that in a separate video, because I do want to talk about that independently. But you look at Jalen Smith and what he can provide. Like I mentioned, him being 25 years old, he is 6'9", 6'10", 215, right? So it's kind of the Nick Claxton question marks, right? But he is that lob threat, versatile kind of two-way center. He also is a guy that can spread the floor. He's a guy that can knock down the three ball, but he's also very versatile defensively, just like Nick Claxton, being able to defend in space, being able to defend in the pick and roll, right? Like, one of the things that I talked about with Nick Claxton when there was talks about the Lakers potentially trading for him is the biggest argument for Nick Claxton is the defensive versatility, right? He might be the best center for the Lakers as far as defensive versatility and the style in which the Lakers like to play defensively. Deandre Ayton, I even said, even before when there was talks about the Lakers maybe trading for him, that I thought he might be the best center the Lakers could get, period, right? Because again, he was the number one pick, and the guy is, an 18-10 guy without Luka. Imagine what he will be with Luka, right? And that's even with the lazy, no motor, this, that, and the other rumors, right? Imagine if he is bought in, locked in, and focused, what he could potentially be. So I thought DeAndre Ayton was the best potential center we could get, but Nick Claxton would be the best versatile defensive center. Well, if you get a guy like a Jalen Smith, he kind of gives you a lot of those same things. Now, I do think Nick Claxton's he's more elite defensively than Jalen Smith, but Jalen Smith is no slouch when it comes to that, right? He's a guy that can definitely, defend in various ways, because he's got that lightweight, right? So he's kind of swift and crafty and can shuffle his feet and stay in front of guys. So I do think he's a guy that, with that versatile, switchable defense that the Lakers like to use, where, you're basically switching 1 through 5, he's a guy that could play that slot. And look, DeAndre Ayton himself said that he wants to be a defensive anchor, that he wants to be more of a shot blocker or rim protector. If he does, which he's more than capable of, dude, the guy has all the tools and all the traits to be able to go and do and be a legit defense player. I'm not talking about elite, or I'm not saying he's going to replace Anthony Davis defensively, but he has the potential to be a really good defender. If he does, right, and you get a Jalen Smith, he's a guy that you'd have this kind of defensive tandem. You could even slot both guys together, because Jalen Smith's ability to stretch the floor and knock down the 3 ball, as well as DeAndre Ayton not being limited to just being around the basket, 10 feet, right? So you could kind of have that interchangeable, but also slot them alongside each other at times and kind of experiment with that a little bit. Obviously, you don't know how that'll look and how that'll work until you actually do it, but with DeAndre Ayton's ability to step out, not a guy I want taking a bunch of threes, but he does have the ability to shoot the 3 ball. To me, when I'm talking about stepping out, talking more stepping out in that 15 to 20 foot range where we know he can knock it down with some confidence. And then Jalen Smith being able to spread the floor, knock it down on even the weak side corner, right? Gives you a guy that's versatile that can slot in really for the 4 or 5 for you, which the Lakers just don't really have, right? Like Maxi Kleber, sure, could you experiment with him at the 4 at times? Sure, but you've seen over his career, he's kind of more best suited as that floor spacing center than that power forward, right? And then Jackson Hayes, he's just not who you want slotted in at the 4 either, because he doesn't have the ability to stretch the floor. Where if you could get a guy like a Jalen Smith, he's a guy that can kind of give you that versatility out there on not only the defensive side, but even the potential offensive side, plus still be that lob threat for Luka Doncic, right? A guy that can slot in on any given night. Ayton gets the night off, right? He can easily slot in and kind of be your starter for you. And you can even play him alongside Jackson Hayes at times and kind of see, again, how does that look, right? You could do a little experimenting over the course of the regular season. And, you never know. You might just find that gem, that diamond in the rough in a Jalen Smith. He had some really good years with Indiana, and then now going to Chicago. There's kind of been questions of should Indiana go and get back Jalen Smith, right? But so far, doesn't look like that's going to happen. They also just re-signed Isaiah Stewart, so that's something too. But getting into kind of what can Jalen Smith provide? What does he bring to a team? What has he done, last year in particular, as well as, over the course of his career, and how he could potentially help the Lakers. So let's get into that a little bit here. So last year for the Chicago Bulls, played 64 games, started in 2 of them, averaged 15 minutes per game. He got 6.4 field goal attempts per game. He is a career 6.3 guy, so right on par with basically his average. Shot 46.6% from the field. He shot 32.4% from 3-point range on 3.5 attempts. So he was mostly just shooting threes, right? This was a guy that was basically for Chicago perimeter oriented more than anything else, because again, he took 6.5 threes, and 3.5 of them were from 3-point range. 3 of them were from 2-point range, in which he was 63.4%. EFG of 55.4%. Now, as far as the 3-point percentage goes for his career, he's 33.2%. His last season in Indiana, he was 42.4% on 2.4 attempts, right? So you got to keep in mind, he was playing alongside Tyrese Halliburton, so the quality of looks he was getting is better than what he was getting in Chicago. You add in now the Lakers, if he was potentially to come to Lakers, you got Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves that are going to generate looks for him and just get him just better quality of looks. So can he kind of, not saying he's going to be 42%, but can he be, 37? He had a year in Indiana, 2021, 2022, on almost 4 attempts, 3.8, where he was 37.3%. Can he get back to that, where he's knocking down at an efficient clip to where teams have to kind of worry and have that concern with him? But again, EFG 55.4%, free throw shooting. 81% on 1.4 attempts. He is a career 75.5 percent free throw shooter, so he's a good free throw shooter. He grabbed 5.6 rebounds, basically 6 rebounds, an assist, half a steal, a block, and 8.2 points per game. If you look at his per 36, which doesn't tell you everything, but kind of gives you an idea if he got more minutes, more of a starting role, he would have been 20 points, 13.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks per game in a per 36 basis, right? So again, not expecting him to be essentially a 20 and 15 guy or 20 and 14 guy, but he is a guy that I do think, again, has some potential, has some upside. Also could potentially give you some Ayton insurance, because something that I've talked about that we have to keep in mind, the Lakers could be right back into this like center hunt next season, because if DeAndre Ayton is really good, like many people expect him to be, myself included, there could be a, hey, let me go try to chase the bag and get the money. And, he could very well leave unless the Lakers are willing to give him the money. So we'll see. Time will tell. But if you can get Jalen Smith, I'd love to go get Jalen Smith, especially if they end up going and trading for Nick Richards. I think Jalen Smith becomes more potentially tradable. And at $9 million, right, can you maybe go, I don't know, flip a Maxi Kleba or something like that and be like, hey, here's a guy for a year that you can have to kind of, swap him in, maybe trade him to a contender or something like that for a second or something on top of whatever the Lakers end up trading in order to acquire Jalen Smith. Could be kind of a win-win. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. I also if you enjoy these types of videos, truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.